So, good morning and welcome to Monkhouse on Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays. Today I have with me Kevin Lane, a good friend and colleague within the sector. Kevin, you just had a promotion. Did I see a new job title for you on LinkedIn?
Good morning, Dave. Yes, a recent change, a change that's been planned for a good few months, but actually came to fruition theoretically on the 1st of April. Kind of weird to get a new job title when you're in a situation like this. But yes, I am now the Wellbeing Director at Active Nation.
Excellent. And I think as we have our conversation today, there's some stuff I want to talk to you about wellbeing and what the values of the business are. So I think we'll link into that. But before we do that, the important bits is, you and I, we've been out for a few cycles and a couple of walks, and we've had those conversations together. So what are you doing to stay active and healthy at the moment?
Well, I've got a little bit of a challenge because my hip and my knee are not very well. So I would love to be out cycling every day, but they don't allow it. So it's sort of a cycle one day, a couple of days rest. But I am doing yoga every morning.
Okay.
Only 5 minutes, but some stretches and yoga, and that's a new thing. It's a revelation, and it sort of links to well-being as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's something I've never really done, is yoga and the Pilates and things like that. So I am back lifting a few weights in the garage, but some running. But yeah, that's I'll have to think about yoga. Okay, so we've been talking to lots of different people about the process of recovering the experience from the lockdown. And I haven't really spoken to any operators, and I thought it'd be a really nice one to talk to you guys because I really like the way you do a lot of stuff. So what was it like in the run-up to the lockdown, Kevin, for the organisation?
I think it would be fair to say it was quite challenging, very stressful. I think actually it sort of hit us in two phases, really. I think very much the safety phrase, which was where my role as formerly the operations director, which was responsible for safety, came to its fore. And I think all of the communication within the business revolved around how do we safely go about social distancing and meeting the government guidelines. And so that was challenging in itself to think differently. And of course, with the changes which were happening almost virtually hourly at some stages, trying to react and respond was pretty challenging. But a good test as well for how you do things. And then I think once sort of the closure period arrived, then I think it was more a case of the finances and how the business can remain sustainable during this period. So the pressure suddenly sort of changed. So it was a massive spike, and then really a bit of a sort of almost a drop off. It was challenging, to be honest. And I think some of the things that I think we've learned from that have been around building resilience. I think as an organisation, you don't know what's coming around the corner. None of us would have predicted this. And one of the things that we as a leadership team worked on, particularly last summer, was around building resilience and allowing our ability to be able to react to different things, even though we didn't know anything about this. And I think that really helped us through this particularly difficult lead-up period. Communication, absolutely critical. And I think, having that understanding of each other as a team, understanding what needed to change, what needed to flex, how far we could flex, all really, really important things. And, I think if we were to go back and change anything, actually, I don't think there's an awful lot we would change, because I think we're having to react anyway, but we would already built into our processes and our beliefs and our culture the ability to be flexible and adaptable.
It's really interesting to hear you reflect on that period. It wasn't very long ago, with day 32, I think it is at the minute. And to hear you sit and talk about the level of reflection that you've done, I guess, as you as well as an organisation, this is really interesting. So how are you sort of using that reflection to manage now the lockdown process?
I think one of the things we did in terms of building resilience was to use Jim Lawless' Taming Tigers, which some people might be aware of. And one of those is all about using the tools around you. And I think what the run up, and then probably afterwards as well, what it's taught us is that actually nobody knows all the answers. The government didn't know all the answers, but they were using the scientists and advice, etc. We didn't know all the answers, but we tried to pull in from our internal resources, but also then pull in from external resources. And you start to realize the importance and value of your partners. And we've been incredibly lucky that the suppliers, who we call partners, that we work with, have been so supportive. our clients that we call partners have been incredibly supportive of us as an organisation. And I think it reinforces the need to keep building relationships, which is one of our behaviours that we build relationships, to keep doing that, because sometimes when things go wrong or something goes awry, you need to have the people around you to do that. So I think we recognise that what we did, believing we might need to do it one day, has actually started to come to fruition. Then I think within your organisation, you need to do the same thing there. Use the tools around you. Remember that, as a director, I don't know all the answers. So use the people around you to say, well, actually, where can you contribute? How can you come up with ideas to make the difference, to move things on, to react and respond? And actually, what can we believe? What can we plan in advance of things happening? And I think that working with different parts of the business, different suppliers, and then looking outside. So the support from the likes of Simspa and UK Active, etc., has been really important as well. And I think what we've seen, isn't it, is how the industry has come together. We saw the same within our business, how our team have come together, and our supporters (brackets customers). We've had supporters who have been so supportive and sent us messages of goodwill and hope we get through this and so on and so forth, which is amazing. It's just brilliant.
Yeah. No, it's fabulous. And it's really interesting to hear you speak, because one of the things I really like about your organisation, your business, is your terminology, the word of supporters for customers and partners, for your suppliers and your clients. I think it's really, really strong. And I think that's underlined and underpinned by an awful lot of really good values within your business. And I'd just be interested to know how you are using those business values in your preparation for unlocking or reopening or whatever it happens to be. And just, can you talk us through sort of some of the values and how they're being used to prepare yourself and the team ready for reopening?
Sure, Dave. I think it's really, really important, because this is a test of an organisation's real depth, isn't it? It's not just about what you do, but it's how you believe in it. So we've got three key values, or three core values within the organisation. One is to be proactive. 2 is to be enthusiastic, and 3 is to be responsible. So the proactivity, of course, has been critical in terms of trying to predict what might happen. And as you said about the run-up, really difficult because things are changing. So we were quite responsive, but constantly thinking, well, how does that work? How can we plan for that better? Now as we start to look forward to one day reopening, how do we plan for that? How do we get proactive? How do we predict what might be in place and then adapt? So that proactivity needs to be adaptive as well. So we're already thinking about that. I think in enthusiasm, to me, seeing how our team have come together and worked together, it just demonstrates that enthusiasm is there, that belief, that passion about what we're trying to achieve. Persuade the nation to be active so that we can improve people's lives is critical. And then I think taking responsibility, that element of, actually, we're all in this together. This is our problem, our shared problem. And I think you see this on a global scale, but certainly on a national scale, with the Thursday night clap and the whole essence of we're all working together to get through this pandemic, this situation. I think on a microcosm, we've built values into our organisation to try to enhance that. Whereas I think nationally, it's sort of something that's inbred into us anyway. We don't really recognise it specifically, but it's there. What is it like to be British and that sort of thing? And what's it like to be human? And I think that's on the global scale. I think with the Inactive Nation, what are our values? And I explained the 3 of those there. And I think they will help us to continue to respond, but they'll help us to continue to plan for things and maintain the resilience that I referred to at the beginning. And also when we do reopen, and we talked about our team, our campaigners, as we call them, staff, it's about sharpening the saw, which is another phrase Stephen Covey, is one of his 7 steps to successful leadership, is about how do you make sure that the people go back in ready to deliver what will probably be a quite different service.
Absolutely, and maybe a different service to different people as well. When you get the chief medical officer standing up and saying there is absolutely no reason why nobody should take part in physical activity, I think there needs to be a sub underneath that, apart from ME, of course, where you need to be very, very careful. But to have that type of message repeated on the television, how much would that have cost us? This girl can cost Sport England a lot of money and made a big difference. But that campaign by Chris Whitty alone is really powerful. So what do you think what are you doing to set yourself up for maybe a new set of customers, some different customers, a different looking future? How are you going to support your teams for that type of piece?
I think it's really interesting. We've often said as an organisation we've got 23 venues or so, and they are just a vehicle where we can deliver a service, so people come to us. But we've also been very mindful of a sort of digital transformation over the last 2 years or so, where we go to them and very much around the personalisation agenda, trying to see what can we do for that individual rather than we put this on and see who comes in. It's how do we look at it from a different angle. And I think the shutdown and the lockdown has shown that there is an appetite to do exercise. People are starting to make a link. It's becoming, well, now I know why I do it, because I'm being told it's going to help me to fight this potential virus. And so I think there is a marketplace of people who perhaps wouldn't have thought about exercise in the past, who will do it. We know there's a massive demand now for at-home exercise. We've got hundreds of classes that we put through our app. Our app is free for anybody to download. We want to continue that process. We want to support communities, so it's not just about Active Nation at this leisure centre or at this club. It's about Active Nation in this community. And I think we will see how that changes. I don't think as many people will go back to the venue, but I think more people will see how they can continue that activity. But I think there is one riser to that, one issue of concern, which I think is around the weather. The pandemic has happened at a time when the weather's good. People can get outside, they can walk, they can run, they can cycle. What's it going to be like when it's dark, wet and cold? How will people then continue? And I think that's where literally the in-home activity might become more prevalent. And how can we support that? And how can we make sure it's being delivered safely, but also effectively? But also then, what are the programs within the venues that people can go to and actually continue what they've hopefully enjoyed anyway? But also mindful of the restrictions and social distancing. How are we going to manage that? And that's all part of the proactiveness, thinking about actually how will our venues look? How will our exercise classes look? How will the gym look? How will the pool changing rooms have to function differently? How will queues coming into the door have to be managed differently? So there's a lot of different sort of facets to this. And there's no doubt about it that exercise will be done differently, I think, in future.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't know if you've seen the latest YouGov stats that said that 32% of people would be comfortable to go back to a gym environment. And when you start seeing those numbers, you do recognise that actually we've got a lot to do to build confidence in our communities. And I've talked to a few people around cleanliness, around maintenance, and great, we've done a deep clean or we've maintained our air conditioning so there isn't a Legionella issue. But actually letting our customer and our consumer know and our supporter know that we've done these things, I think is going to become more and more important. It was something you and I have done an awful lot of work through Quest. You actually work for Quest, but it was great. Okay, you've got your checklist and you've got this and you've got that, but who knows about this? What value we're getting from it? What's the outcome of all of these inputs that you're putting into place? And I think you've touched on a few bits there around how we change the way people exercise and things, but I also think operators have got to start realising that people are going to want to know what it is that we've done to make this an environment that they feel comfortable and safe too.
I think we've also got to manage expectations as well. I think if you go to the supermarket at the moment and you see, first of all, there's a queue management system, somebody getting you in, somebody getting you out. Then you get to your trolley and somebody's been wiping that down. And then you go around the shop and, there's arrows on the ground and directing you. And then when you get to the tills, it's, well, you need to go to that till and there's the screens up. And they very, very quickly adapted. Can we adapt so quickly? Do we need to adapt? They're the physical things that people will see. I think there's always an expectation that our venues will be clean and hygienic and safe. I think that just is that's what you pay your money for. That's a gimme. But I think there's going to also be an element of personal responsibility as well. So whilst we might say we've organised the gym so that equipment is a couple of meters apart, it then relies upon you as an individual using it to maintain that social distance and follow the rules that we've tried to set to help you, as it were. So I think it's going to be quite a mutual thing, and it's not just simply about what has the operator done to demonstrate this, that, and the other, but actually it's how are we working hand in hand. You could say it comes back to the personalisation agenda. How do you see your supporters as individuals rather than just a massive group of people coming to use you? So I think there's going to be a different relationship. And as I said, I think the messages of support we've had from our supporters have been superb. and that starts to build that essence of, well, actually we are in this together, and yes, it's the venue we're opening for your benefit, but actually you've got a contribution to make to that.
Absolutely.
That'll be really interesting, and of course people are more used to it. Wash their hands.
Yeah.
And that sort of stuff.
I think that's a really good way of closing this, because we've used our 15 minutes up. This is why we go out for an hour-and-a-half ride or a 2-hour walk. We've got
exactly.
to say. But I think the point about looking at what others are doing and learning from that, I think that is something that's absolutely key. And that I hope people will take from this conversation is, what can they learn from that conversation? So Kevin, thank you so much for your time. Really good to see you. Take care. Tell you bye.
You too. Cheers, Dave. Thanks. Bye now.